Anthony Edwards. He was in a recent, or he was recently interviewed by, I think, the Wall Street Journal about Michael Jordan and the skill
Oh yeah,
set
yeah.
of other players. So I do have his response here because I can't remember by heart what he said. So it
Okay.
says, speaking to the Wall Street Journal, Edwards stated Michael Jordan was the only player that really had skills from the past generations. This was exactly what he stated. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. He said, they say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw, I'm sorry, so that's why when they saw Kobe Bryant, they were like, "Oh my god!" But now everybody has skills. Hmm. Very, very interesting thing to say. I guess just give me your overall thoughts on this, on what he said. K Walk, I'm gonna come to you first.
Hey, listen, I'm not mad at him for saying this because of the, but I kind of disagree with him. And there are other guys that had skill, but like he mentioned, he didn't watch everybody. So he didn't watch everybody. He probably watched a film or a video on MJ because MJ is always in the GOAT talk. So when these young kids start to talk about who their GOAT is, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
LeBron, whether it be Kobe, again, a lot of people think the GOAT is a generational thing. I'm starting to believe that, ladies and gentlemen, especially after this, especially after this comment. So yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it, and Jay and I always say when we watch film or when we watch little highlights, is something you get on TikTok or something you come across a video that someone put together, you look at it and say, dang, that MJ, look at his footwork, look at the way he contorted his body, things of that nature. Yeah, MJ did it like no one else did it, even today.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't say that he was the only one that had skill. That I would be so disrespectful, so naive to the fact that other guys back then had skills. Just to name a few, Dominique was a Magic, Dr. J. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just looking at, I'm just talking about the era that MJ pretty much played in because Dr. J pretty much passed the torch to MJ, so that's why I didn't go that far back. But yeah, I mean the list goes on and on. But MJ, in my opinion, was the most skilled basketball player even today. But I get what he's saying, but I disagree at the same time. Other guys had just as well, not just as much skill, but had skill, and I do
I
know.
think I think for me, this is when I believe that when you have a craft, and this is his craft, I think studying and understanding, um, like hip hop, for instance, you work on your craft, but a lot of times they study the previous ones prior to them. You hear all the time. Uh, LL made love, a rapper prior. I can't think of one right now. Rapper prior to him, Will Smith has been known to say Rakim was his favorite artist of all time, one of the best rappers to this day is considered of all time. I just think he's young, and he said it. He hasn't looked at other players, and I think that's the main problem right there. So you're telling me your age right then and there. But do your homework before you speak out on something. Do your homework. I do think MJ is the GOAT. I do think MJ is one of the most, if not the most skilled player, um, from the past. Absolutely. But like you said, Kid, there are a lot of other players who were skilled. There were players that was ahead of their time, that will probably fit in a whole nother generation. They were just, they was just born at the wrong time. Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the most skilled big men
Yeah,
at the
Yeah,
time. You
yeah.
know, Joel Embiid studies Hakeem Olajuwon. We could see it. People still can't do Kareem's sky hook to this day. So Oscar Robinson. So there are so many skilled players um, from back then. You just got to do your homework. This sounded like somebody who just decided to open up his mouth without
not,
looking
but
at previous
I think a
tapes.
lot of had to do with it because there's a lot of comparisons to because people were saying it. He looks like MJ. His game reminds people of MJ's game. So that probably went
And I
why he
and I
went
get
there,
it.
and that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying.
And I
That's
understand
another
that. I
reason why the
understand that.
comparisons are there.
But to say that other people didn't have skills and everybody today has
I
skills.
agree.
No,
I agree.
everybody back then had skills too. It's a
Yeah.
different generation. It's a different time in basketball, and basketball has absolutely changed in a way that is played. And what I mean, like, the 3-point line is way more, just took over the game. But they had skills back then too. They had a lot of skills. So Russell Westbrook wasn't the first guy to average triple doubles in the league. So to me, just do your homework. And he could have just left it off. I think Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I haven't watched enough of the old school film and ended at that. And that's that. But people
But
come
to
on.
his defense, my MJ,
That
when
ain't
he
no
said,
ain't no defense.
yeah, I'm coming to his defense like I came to Schroeder.
Ain't no defense. No.
Yeah, Ant Man just put me on retainer, man. I mean, I just think that, that when he said
Get paid by
MJ was
Clutch.
the, yeah, I don't care who got get paid by, but nonetheless, I think when he said that, I think he said because he said MJ was the only one that had skills, and you know what I mean, meaning that he had those skills that no one else had, and that's where I think I don't think he was saying that no other guys had skills. I think he said MJ had the skills that no one else has. Now he's trying to say that these guys nowadays are just as skilled as MJ, and it's I'm going back to my Schroeder thing and said
Do you think
he's not
you
disrespecting the
do you
NBA.
think a lot of these guys have just as skill as MJ?
I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them do. What I
Mhm.
don't think they have is that mentality that MJ had, and we go back to Schroeder, that IQ, that mentality, that attitude that MJ brought to the table, the killer instinct,
Mhm.
if you will, the willingness to play defense,
Mhm.
willingness to be a defensive player of
Is
the year, an MVP of the year, MVP as well. Go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
is defense a skill?
Absolutely. It's a will, a skill, and a will. Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
that we for sure know a lot of guys are
Yeah.
missing, right?
Yeah.
but
For sure.
but
For sure.
Britt,
but
can
That's
you
what
Jay,
go ahead,
go
Jay.
ahead,
you
go
want me to
ahead,
bring
Britt.
it back up?
Yeah, I want to see that quote
Want me to
one
bring it
more
back
time
up?
because I want to make sure I get this right. I don't want to jump all over Ant Man because I
No,
want
no,
to
and I
make
wasn't
sure.
I wasn't jumping on him. I'm
No,
just
no,
saying,
no,
just make
no.
sure
I'm
you
not
do your
saying you
homework.
were. I just
Yeah.
He's ready
before I
to. He's
go,
ready to.
I want to make
Yeah.
sure that I
You
understand
see, he
what he
says,
says.
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
watch it. They said tough back then, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. Like to me,
That
that's a pretty strong statement right there. And I just find it funny. You could take it down now, Britt, if you want.
mhm.
I find it funny that he said I didn't watch it, so I shouldn't speak on it. And then he went ahead and spoke on it. I just
Hey,
thought that was funny. But I don't know. Like I agree. Like I think the guys from MJ's era, I think they were skilled. Like Britt, you talked about Kareem, Hakeem, Larry Bird was skillful. Isaiah Thomas,
yeah.
Mhm.
of course, Magic. Like there were plenty of guys that had skill then. I think the thing about MJ is that when you watch a clip of MJ from back in the day, even
Mhm.
now, it looks like it could be a clip from today's NBA. And I
Yes.
Right.
think that's the difference with MJ. It looks like his game still translates to present day basketball where some of the other guys you're watching and you're like, okay. But I disagree that I think the guys in the league now are as skilled as MJ. I think overall there are better shooters in the league, but I don't know that they're necessarily more skilled. Like when you start talking about MJ's footwork, his
Mhm.
creativity around the rim,
Yeah.
that fadeaway jumper, like I don't know that I see a lot of guys in the league now that have really perfected all those skills. Yes, there's great shooters. We got some high flyers,
Mhm.
but in terms of like just really basketball skill, I'm not sure I would put today's guys on MJ's level. Obviously, yeah, there's some guys who are incredibly skilled, but just as a whole, I'm not giving all those guys that much credit.
Yeah, I personally think today's league that there's a lot of skilled guys, but I just think it's more so focused on that 3-point shooting and athleticism.
Yeah,
I honestly think that's what. And again, you have your outliers of
sure.
the real great players, but when you look at the majority of the league, they focus so much on 3-point shooting and athleticism. Um, and I think when you comparing it to the past generation, and there's no defense, right? But and you comparing it to the past generation, I could put a lot of those guys into today's game and they'll be fine. I could put a Scottie Pippen into today's game. Scottie
For
Pippen
sure.
was a very skillful type of player.
For
And
sure.
K-Walk, that's your man. I'm surprised you ain't say him. Did you say him? I don't remember.
Nah, because we were just talking about MJ. That's why I ain't
Right.
gonna go too much.
You know, so I just felt like, again, Ant-Man is my guy. I think he could become the face of the NBA if they don't want to take it an international route, which I don't think they will, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. I just think that we gotta, as younger people, because I'm a little older, but I'm some part of that younger people. We have to do our homework before we speak on certain topics. And I think this was the one where try to use that maneuver at the PR. You're still young, so you're still learning. And say, you know what? Let me do my homework a little bit more, then I could come back and answer that question. Because there were so many skillful players back then that could probably play today and succeed just fine. We say it all the time, especially with how soft the league is today. You know, you can't really foul anybody. There's a lot of space in the NBA. So I just think he kind of just spoke too soon on it.
And do you think these guys? Do you think these guys would say this like if they were sitting in the room with 90s? Like, do you think if he was sitting in a room with Magic Johnson, he would say MJ was the only guy that really had skill back then? Like, Magic is a 6'9" ball handling point guard. Like, do you really like? So I think you're right, Britt. Maybe he just didn't think hard enough about some of the guys that played in that era. Because I mean, yeah, it's different, but to say that they weren't skilled, I mean, that's a stretch for me.
Hey Jay, that's a topic. I mean, that's a show right there. That's a show right there you just created. Man.
Yeah.
We'll keep on that. So but Ant-Man, we still love you though. So for sure, just do your homework. That's my only advice. Just study your craft. From back then to study your craft. But no. All right, guys, we're gonna head into break. When we come back, Jay's gonna take over. Please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Sideline Speaks. Please share. We would so greatly appreciate it as we are slowly but surely growing. We are also on X, formerly known as Twitter. I finally fixed that language, guys. At The Sideline Speaks, and anywhere you can listen to your podcast.